Three, two, one. All right, perfect. It worked. Good Lord, that's amazing.
What a way to start.
All right, so let's jump into the deep end. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Gamers Tell All. And today I have with me the fantabulous, the wondrous, and the amazing Checkpoint Show. How you
Hi,
doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm excited. I'm nervous and scared all at the same time.
Good. It's important to be nervous. If you've watched any of the other interviews, you know that they are all afraid of me,
Oh, that's
and
good.
they're right to be.
What a
Because I asked
reputation.
I asked the real questions. I'm the gotcha journalist of
Oh
YouTube.
no.
Um, so checkpoints, my friend. Do you want me to call you
Hmm.
checkpoints, or do you want me to refer to you with a name as opposed
You
to an avatar?
call me Nathan if you want.
Nathan,
Hi.
hello. Um, Tell us a little about yourself for the people watching my channel who don't know you. The
About myself or about my channel it is.
About yourself first. Talk about you.
Oh,
How did you
oh,
get into video games? How did you become a gamer
oh my
person?
God, a gamer. Okay, so that's a long story. Not really. I was born in 1995. So we had my sister and my dad have a special little console, known as the Super Nintendo.
Oh,
Uh,
I hear those were pretty rare.
they were, yeah, I don't think
Kind
anyone's
of
ever heard
niche.
of one. Yeah, Nintendo is quite rare. So, um, but we had one of those, and then we got another special console called a PlayStation One. So that Super Nintendo needed to go somewhere, and where it went is in my room.
Oh,
And
they gave
I,
you a TV and everything.
oh yeah, I remember having this TV that it was like an analog TV. It didn't have buttons.
Uh-huh.
It was like an old, like, big chonky 90s TV. It was an analog thing that you have to pull out one of the analogs and then you have to tune the color to.
Whoa, what? I thought I had an old TV growing up because I had a knob that turned the channel. You are talking something ancient.
Yes, this thing was old, and it was that, like, I don't know what color it is, but it had that ugly 90s beige color that, like, computers and things was. But it was also in a house filled with smokers, so it just had like smoke stains on it, so it had like a weird texture. It was old.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
So yeah, obviously because I had that available in my room, we only had two games to my memory. Obviously, I was still quite young. You all remember, I must have been, 4 or whatever. Uh,
I
we
was 6 at the time, so don't worry.
Oh, okay, good. um, we had Killer Instinct. Um,
Okay, I was so ridiculous back in the day. I
and
love, who was it? Fulcor was the guy with the big arm spikes robot,
yes,
right?
yeah, yeah,
God,
yeah.
I love Fulcor.
I was obsessed with Killer Instinct that we had, and it was like the first game that stuck out to me as, like, just I don't know. I was crap at it because I was young, but like the visuals, the characters, I was just like, oh my god, I love it. Like I,
Yeah.
like, what was it? Is it Saberwolf? Is it like Saberwolf?
So,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. And I just remember just being obsessed by the game, and then obviously, just with time with PlayStation and all that coming out, our family was always quite lucky to have every console, which was
Yeah.
interesting because I was always that one kid where, you get that conversation with kids in school or whatever growing up. And people be like, oh yeah, what do you play? Oh, PlayStation, obviously. I'll be like, there's a choice. I just have all of them. Like, what do you
And
mean? What
people,
do I play?
so all of your friends secretly hate you from
Yeah,
afar, but then when you're
probably.
like, well, where are we going this weekend? Let's hang out at Nathan's house for
No one was
reasons.
allowed round. It's my game time.
Oh gosh. Um,
Yes. So
that that
early
reminds
on.
me of how I got into fighting games.
Mm,
This was later on. This is whatever Soul Calibur 2 was on
PlayStation
PlayStation
2.
2.
Yeah.
Yes. So my brother was still into gaming at the time. He fell off later,
Mm,
but he got Soul Calibur 2 as like one of his games that he got for some holiday or birthday, I don't know.
mm.
And basically, he didn't let me play it for an entire month because it was his game. and I don't get to play it because I'm the little brother, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And after a month, that's when he finally feels like, oh, okay, I'm good at this game now. I can beat my little brother whenever I want. And like he had gone through all the story mode and everything. And he played me one-on-one one day, and I chose Keelik, the staff character in that fighting game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Keelik is well known for being able to spam his way for noobs into victory. And I won every round against my brother that day, fell in love with fighting games, and he quit entirely. So
I have a similar story. So like obviously my sister was older than me. She was like 4 years older than me. And obviously it was the same thing. She would play, fighting games. Soul Calibur was a good example. Yeah, so she'll be obsessed with Soul Calibur 1, Soul Calibur 2. And she would just destroy me. Like it was always one of those things. It's like she's better than me, and I can't have that. Like as a kid, you're like, no. So yeah, she used to just destroy me. And I remember we went to the library, and it was back when the library used to rent out games. And we got this special little game called Dragon Ball Z Budokai.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna quiet that gamer reaction that I just had and let you keep talking.
So we played Dragon Ball Z religiously. Obviously, watched Dragon Ball Z religiously. Like if you grew up in the 90s and early 2000s and had Cartoon Networks or Fox TV or whatever you had, Dragon Ball Z and just Dragon Ball in general.
You couldn't get away from it. You didn't want to.
It was just a part of the culture. And yeah, so we used to play that, and I remember one day I pulled a sickie, and it's quite a strange memory because I remember I pulled a sickie at school, so I didn't go to school. Just obviously I could have the whole day to practice playing the game, and then like when she got back, I was able to beat her at least twice, and back then that was a big deal. But like,
oh yeah.
It began our like my obsession as well, but like our obsession with getting every single Dragon Ball Z game, like any type of like Dragon Ball Z variant there was, I would go out of my way and get it. Like Dragon Ball Budokai 2, Budokai 3, like yeah, it's the same story and over again, but it's more characters and it looks better. So why wouldn't I?
Absolutely. You see like Janemba in the game, and you're like, I didn't see that one Japan only movie. Who the hell is this?
Okay.
He has horns, looks like a devil, and has a sword of
Yeah.
energy. I'm sold. But I mean, okay, but hot gamer take here, all right? The Budokai games I think are still better than Dragon Ball Fighters.
I think Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is like genuinely a fighting game masterpiece. I ranked Budokai 3 in my top 5, even top 3 fighting games of all time.
And I honestly, like, as great as like Arc System Works Dragon Ball game is, like it's still a 2D fighter, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a more traditional fighting game with like new systems and like great graphics. Looks way better than Budokai. But Budokai captured the feeling, and the look of what is a Dragon Ball Z character flying all around.
And that's what my problem is with Z Fight. Like it's one of those. It looks gorgeous and it plays so fast. Just like if you know how to play it, it's like Killer Instinct. If you know how to play the game, it looks incredible. But it doesn't feel like Dragon Ball Z. Like the thing about Budokai and even like Raging Blast and Xenoverse, like despite them, I don't think being great. I think their stories were weak, but being able to just have these huge open 3D maps where you charge up and then like you just fly like full speed through a mountain just to like punch someone in the face. It's like like that puts a smile on your face, doesn't it? You're like you just start doing all the voices. You're like, damn you, Kakarot. I just love it.
Man, I was that fucking kid who never wanted to like imitate any of the popular characters or like Goku or anyone, and so I was always the one just like yelling special beam cannon because I'm the only one who will yell special beam cannon and not the more like less nerdy feeling Kamehameha. Because at
I,
least you can pretend it's a magic word or
I
something.
was
And I'm
exactly the
just
same.
saying words. Special beam cannon.
Like I used to, oh god, it's cringy. Like thinking about, obviously, like you're a kid, you know what I mean? But like growing up, obviously, I had quite bad ADHD, so I used to take medication for it.
Yeah.
But I saw this, like, obviously being a kid, you'd be like, I have an opportunity here. And I saw the opportunity to pretend to be Kid Boo sometimes. And Kid
Oh,
Boo
yeah.
was like, is as still is my favorite Dragon Ball Z villain because I just love,
Yeah.
I like a
He's
psychopathic, like
intimidating as
it's just
hell.
mental.
And
Yeah, I love it.
yeah.
And I
And
remember
the
like,
evolution from like I'm a bouncing
yeah,
baby to I'm a pissed off adult to I'm just a crazy kid and you can't handle
yeah,
me. It's just
exactly.
like that's what I am.
I used to,
I'm a
like, pound on
crazy
my
kid that
chest.
people can't handle.
Yeah, so that
Most
was me.
relatable villain.
Yeah, I loved Kid Buu. He was great.
All right. My last Dragon Ball Z nerd memory before we move on. There was this one kid at my school. I forget his name. I think it was Jarvis. But that could be
What a
just
name.
the Marvel movies overwriting
yeah.
my memories. But he
I think
had
his
this
name was
shirt.
The Vision.
Oh yeah, my friend the Vision from down the street.
But that might be my Marvel memory.
We hang out in the cul-de-sac. Riding bikes. But so okay, so he had this shirt, right? And
Right.
in hindsight, this was some knockoff nonsense shirt, right?
Right,
But
yeah.
it was a picture of Goku. But he was golden and furry all over and had a different outfit and big energy coming off of him, like whatever. And this
Right.
was back when the furthest like Super Saiyan that we
Okay,
knew
so
of
it
from
wasn't
the
Super
anime.
Saiyan 4.
No, it was Super
Okay.
Saiyan 3 was the like the
right.
most we had from the anime. GT wasn't a thing yet. And it didn't look like Super Saiyan 4 because he was fuzzy all over, not just, leaving the head and the pecs to be seen. And the kid, I kid you not, went around telling people, oh yeah, this is Super Saiyan 6. And I believed it
Yeah, I bet you did.
because
This
it was
thing.
on a shirt.
Yeah, it's so
Why
easy.
would a shirt lie?
Yeah. I don't. Oh yeah. Oh no. And
And
I
I
can
was just
image
like,
it.
whoa,
I-
Super Saiyan 6.
It reminds me of the days where you used to get like gaming manuals, and then you have the very last page being text to get these wallpapers for your phone, and you always had like Mr. T Yoda with a joint in his mouth. Like they were the days.
The most canon Star Wars
I
character.
love it.
All right, let's move on before we just talk about our childhoods for forever. So tell me about YouTube. Why did you want to get started on YouTube? And how did you go about it?
Well, that's a two-part story.
Good, it's a two-part question.
Oh, good. Here we go. So what happened is I went to college. In England, college is before university. I went to college and studied media. Editing, cameras, all that stuff. I've always loved films. Growing up, I've been a film buff. It's always been a dream to be a director. To be able to tell stories. And I studied in college media, and it was a 4-year course. And it's one of those. It's not even a toot my own horn situation, but I was like one of the highest graded in the class. I got some awards for some things that I've made during college and such.
Cool.
And there was this passion there, and I was thriving from doing it. And then I went to do a university induction to go to university, and they said, "Yeah, cool. You have the possibility and high chance of getting in. Obviously, you just got to pay the funds and get the grades." Which is obviously and I was 1 year off from getting the final grades, and halfway through my last year, I turned 18. And And then the college turned around and said to me, "Well, you're going to have to pay for the course to finish it." And
Oh God.
I was like, I don't have the money for that. My family didn't have the money to deal with that. And I even tried to look into like bursaries and things to help pay for it, and it was something I couldn't handle or do. So it came a situation where I wasn't able to finish the course, therefore I wasn't able to get the final grade I needed to go university.
That sucks. What
Yeah.
kind of gotcha system is that? We let you stay. We let you stay here for 3 years, and then just like, oh well, you're a legal adult. Pony up.
To the stage. Yeah, the IT technician left who handled all the cameras and such. And the college said, "Oh, once you finish college, if you want, you can. This position is open for a job if you would like a part-time job." And I was like, "If you're offering me a part-time job, just let me do the course."
Like, let me pay you with work or something.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
So obviously, I got into a situation where I got out. So I was left out of the course, and I needed to get work. Because obviously my mum was like, "Well, you're 18, you're not living at home without paying bills." So obviously, I got a job at Sainsbury's, which is a supermarket, and as a delivery driver. But what I wasn't like a driver. I was like a click and collect person who would sit in a van, and then the customers would turn up and collect their items. And sometimes I would just sit in this van for 9 hours a day.
Dear God. Okay.
It would,
As a person who has driven people or done delivery, that those long hours of waiting and doing nothing is soul crushing.
Yes, it is. But luckily, because because I was quite, I had a PSP. I was sitting there on my own. I set up speakers in both corners of the on the van. So I was watching films through the PSP and stuff. Yeah, I remember just watching Alien versus Predator, and there's just people screaming, and there was a knock on the window like, "I want my delivery." I'm like, "Oh."
That's quite resourceful. It's like, hey, if you really want your delivery, you gotta brave the xenomorph. All right, you don't know what's in here. I open the door, and the Geiger monster.
So I was sitting there, and I can't remember what I was watching, but I was watching something where someone was talking about Quentin Tarantino. And there was like, Quentin Tarantino never finished high school. He dropped out early, and he's like one of the most renowned and praised directors of all time. And there was this stubbornness that came over me where I was just like, I don't fucking, can I swear?
I already did. Go on.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't fucking want to go university. I like having a job and like having money in my pocket. And I like not having to stress about doing coursework, but I need to find something to prove that what I'm capable of. So I was sitting there and I was like, I want to make a channel. I want to make a YouTube channel, make content to show people what I've learned through college and to show people if I ever apply for a job, what I'm capable of. And even to this day, I've used YouTube as a portfolio.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to do that if you have the skills. So
that's what came about with the channel. When I first started off, I watched Kadikarus, JonTron, the early days of gaming reviews, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. And I was doing it for some time because the reason I chose to do those is, one, it allows me to talk about games in a way that I love talking about games, and two, it allows me to film sketches and flex my cinematography and directing muscles. But over time, the problem with that is you need to stay consistent with comedy and all that. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm always in a good mood, and people say I'm genuinely funny. But for me to sit down and write a joke, and be consistent with that, it's like I can't. It wasn't for me.
Yeah, and because I absolutely get that. It's hard to be funny on your own.
Yeah, it's hard to be funny on cue. Yeah,
right. It's so much easier to just be humorous with someone else than to write a joke.
Yeah. So yeah, and over time, I reached out to the Completionist, and obviously we went back and yeah. and we spoke a few times, like back and forth, and he was giving me tips and stuff, and I was like, okay. So a lot of what he said, and a lot of his feedback, inspired me to change like the direction of my channel, and obviously that's what led me to talk about more personal things, such as the videos I'm doing now, where it's, as much as I like to say gaming essays, and I do love a good gaming essay.
Uh-huh.
I think it's important to share personal experiences with games, because like games are, they're great stories and stuff, but games are also important for people. Like there's as a transgender person, I've had many times where I've played games that connect with me, and people around me don't connect with it in a personal way, same as I did, And
Right.
I think it's important to tell tell people about these experiences you had with games. For a good example, Max Payne 3.
Okay.
I there was a time where I was addicted to sleeping tablets. I got very, very
Really?
addicted. I was like taking, nearly to the stage I was taking like 5 a night.
Oh gosh,
And that got
that sounds
bad. It
terrible.
was
Yeah.
awful. I had migraines. I was like dehydrated, and I was just terrible. Like, yeah,
Right.
um,
And sleeping pills are the kind that they're kind of like
yeah, yeah. Don't
they're
do that.
self-iterative,
Yeah,
because like the more you withdraw, the harder it is to go to sleep, the more
yes,
you
yeah,
want to take some sleeping
exactly.
pills.
I took one, and I was like, "Oh, this works. I'm falling asleep." Then for a while, that one didn't work. I was like, "Okay, maybe I'll take two." And then it just goes two, three, two. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and playing Max Payne 3 again, and revisiting that, he tells the story of him like realizing that he doesn't need the painkillers to keep going. He doesn't need to keep drinking alcohol,
Right.
despite the Ludo narrative dissidence of him having to take painkillers for health. Um, in
Yeah, well,
story,
you just when you get back to the gameplay, you just pretend that now they're Flintstones vitamins, and like he's
ibuprofen.
he's he's doing the Nicorette strategy, and it's just
He's
not
just
in the
shotting down
UI.
cowpole, just boom, boom. Um,
We all fix games for the people who made them. That's just something we do.
but yeah, obviously, that resonated with me in a way that it's like I imagine it did with a lot of other people who had maybe the same issue.
Uh-huh.
And that's what led me to creating my addiction begins with pain, spelled like pain,
Yeah.
video, because it's like I wanted to share that experience, and that's the goal of my psychology in my channel. It's not so much to sort of share my experiences, but to share experiences that definitely will relate with others who are not able to have the ability to say they have had that as an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the fact of putting it into a creative work that someone can reference can
Mm,
also like bridge people's ability to communicate it to someone else. Where
yeah,
they're like, if I can't say it to you, but I know of a video, I can send you a link and say, this is how I feel.
yeah.
And like, so probably the thing that has garnered you the most attention recently are your Phobia series of
Mm,
videos, where you're like going into how different games express or use different phobias.
yeah,
Uh, and when I say different phobias, I have to speak broadly because you've covered so many and of so many different kinds.
yeah.
That the thing about those videos that I think really hits on the relatability aspect of it is that you're not just throwing out the certain fear that a person has and being like, hey, check this out, ain't it crazy,
Yeah.
like that someone would be scared of this. It's more like you always find a way to emphasize how the source of that fear,
Mm,
whether it's the actual phobia or not, the source of that fear is normal and common to everybody.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that little bit that actually got me inspired a little bit and made me want to reach out to you, is that I am the biggest baby I know when it comes to horror games.
Yeah.
I watch them on YouTube, And like that's entertaining for me because I know it's at a distance and the person getting
Yeah,
scared
you have
is
someone
not
in between.
me. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not me, it's that person being scared for me. So I'm fine. I just get to look at them like open their mouths and yell and spasm and I'm like, ha ha, ha, look at you, small internet man shaking in the
You
corner.
weakling.
Um, I am strong and protected over here.
Yeah.
But like so to sort of to push myself because the last time I played a horror game, I was the second player in Dead Space 2, Dead Space 3. I don't remember which one.
Dead Space 3 being like that one.
Dead Space 3,
Yep.
where but I didn't know that the second player character
Yeah, yeah,
has horror mechanics that the first player character doesn't. And my
yeah.
friend didn't know that either because he had never played the game before and he always plays first player and he's the one who buys the shooters. So I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm second player. I was second player in Resistance Fall of Man, and
Mhm.
I got to make fun of him because he had to play the white guy, and I got to play the black NP. I got to play the black NPC who was player two, who was just the main
NPC.
NPC, but they
Yeah.
cranked the skin tone down to dark.
Yes.
And we got to make a lot of jokes about because the setting is all like has some like London lady, recanting the war effort against the aliens and recalling all the history, and then we're just like, wait, did she write out the black guy from history,
Shh, shh.
like what always happens regularly?
Yeah.
Is this actual history? The black guy is
Yeah.
here saving the day, and we just don't talk about him.
It's like Resident Evil 5. It's like, where's Sheva anymore? Like, where's she gone? What happened?
No, nothing. That's fine. Don't worry about it too
She
much.
doesn't exist.
Um, but but so when the game started doing like the spooky, oh, here's a nutcracker and here's your daughter running across the screen and whispering in your ear, and I'm hearing this and he's not. I'm such a baby that I'm legitimately freaking out and being like, no, you should be seeing this because we're playing the same game. And I actually quit. I quit that game. We didn't finish. I just
Oh
said, no,
wow.
I'm done. I'm done. I forget this game. It's too scary.
I mean, Dead Space 3 is a game to forget about, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. But
It's
see,
not
like
great.
that's the thing. It's not even known as the scariest of the series, and I
No,
was,
no.
and I was just like, oh nope, too much. I bail. Done.
You're gonna
I
have a
don't.
bad
Whatever.
time.
Dolls, nutcrackers. Don't care. I'm gone.
Wow.
And so I was like, so I after watching your videos, I decided to put on my big boy diaper
Hmm.
and like I played Little Nightmares because I was
Oh,
like,
one or two.
one, the first
Okay.
one,
Yeah.
because I know two is out. I'm sure I watched people play Little Nightmares before, but I
Yeah.
didn't remember much of it really. I didn't remember the
Yeah.
ending chapters at all, for that matter.
No, no, no.
Um,
Oh,
right?
no. Yeah.
And like the first section of the game, I was really scared, and I was like, my basic way of handling it was essentially that I got really reckless with how I
Yeah.
did things. I stopped
Yep.
trying to be careful because it was easier emotionally for me to just run forward as much as possible and just
Hmm.
try to execute well with, do the puzzle with the elite gamer skills. I
Sometimes that's the
kept
best thing to do.
Yeah, and like I kept comparing it to Warframe because if you think about it, they have a lot of similar mechanics. You
Hmm.
get to run, you can slide into cover, like basically the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and like, but so then by when on my second play session, I wasn't like scared so much as I was just like really um, tense because I knew I
Yeah.
had to execute everything perfectly. And then I really just mostly got upset and frustrated at it when the execution didn't work or I had to repeat something multiple times. Uh, I had to climb over that table of all the people trying to eat you in
Hmm.
the ending section like 4 times because I couldn't make the jump at the end of the table. And it wasn't a hard section.
Yeah,
It
yeah, I
was
know
just
part. Yeah,
annoying. And so I'm not sure. It's a good step for me because it's like, okay, I can play a horror game and I can play it to completion. Maybe now I'll play other games.
I think what you were saying, where you started playing like you're just rushing, you're going for it. That's a good strategy in horror. The best way to make a horror game not scary is to die in the
Yeah,
game, because it breaks the immersion of the scene. It break like the moment that you're like, oh, that's what happens when you die. It's not bad. All of a sudden it stops becoming about you in this situation, but instead how you play the game in that situation. And it
like
breaks that
absolutely, I
tension.
agree. Yeah, because like really, and like my whole like pretentious philosophizing self says, well, the true nature of all fear comes from ignorance. It's the lack of knowing, and
Yeah,
once we know, we have gained power. I
I
learned
mean,
that from the GI
essentially,
Joes.
knowing is half
But
the battle.
and and so it's like, of course, like you can just, but then at the same time I'm like, okay, but that sucks though. Because the whole point of me going into this is that I'm looking for a kind of excitement and a kind of like activation that I don't get from other kinds of action.
Yeah,
So I should be trying to avoid getting caught, but at the same time, I recognize, well, there's an upper limit to how much fear and
but
how much shaking I can handle, but I still will want to play the video game. So it's like, well, how do
I
I
mean,
progress?
see, that's why.
I need to spoil it so that I can get past it.
Yeah, like obviously it is just frustrating to play horror games and knowing to yourself, okay, I've got to break the immersion to get through it, so I'm not as scared. And I think that's why it sounds weird to say, but people might not agree, but Hellblade is one of the best horror games ever. Like
Oh yeah.
it is a horror game at heart. It's not scary. It's like a horror doesn't need to be scary. Horror is a broad term, but
It is
it
what it is so scary.
it has
Who
moments.
who
Yeah.
doesn't say it's scary?
I mean, but a lot of
Who
people
are
wouldn't
these
classify it as
people?
horror, would you? I think it is genre as an action adventure in it. Like it's not.
Yo,
I think it's something way worse.
y'all
Um,
people, they
crazy.
can go watch my video on Hellblade. That game is
Yeah,
scary.
yeah, and I think the reason as well is not just because of the atmosphere, the tension, and the audio design, but it's a game that says to you, "Don't rush," because if you do die, the whole game will be deleted. Like if you die
Right,
too many times,
right.
it will start again. So it encourages you to immerse yourself in the moment. And when you
It's
die, you get frustrated with yourself, not the game
right.
or the monsters.
That you're right. I mean that utilizing, I guess you could call it soft permadeath.
Yes, yeah,
You have a few deaths, and it's more than you think, but you have no idea how many it is.
yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It's scary.
yeah. So like you know, I have to try to not die, and that's annoying
Yes, yeah,
because it means you
exactly.
can't break the tension.
And it's one of
You
those
just
like,
can't.
imagine a game. I imagine there is that we've probably played and I can't think of, but imagine a game like I don't know, Resident Evil 3 being chased by Nemesis. Actually, no, better example, Alien Isolation being chased by the
Yes.
alien. But instead of you being like, oh, when you die, you go all the way back to the last checkpoint, it's like, if you die, the game will restart. And all of a sudden, the enemy becomes something way worse. It's not just like a
Right.
hindrance. It's a, you will destroy my day if you kill me. Please
Right.
don't do it. Like, and that's
And it
like,
doesn't even have to
oh,
be like a mechanical difficulty
nope.
change. It could literally just be the creature is scarier now.
Yes.
You have a harder time figuring out where it is or reading its patterns.
Yeah.
And it already has very sophisticated patterns, but then like the game could literally just start lying to you about where the creature is because you've, I don't know, the death is symbolic of you imagining your own death and hallucinating or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We're pontificating on what game developers should do, uh, but away from the horror, because we're deep into the me singing your praises section of the podcast.
Oh.
Uh, uh, the you also have a lot of videos that are like, how do I describe this? Focusing on a certain minutia that's easy to miss or not pay attention to. Like the last video of yours that I went back to rewatch last night was on that the personality of first-person characters
All right,
done through
yeah.
hand animations. And I can't think of anyone else who's cared to look at that at a variety of games at once. Like, I occasionally hear people, when a game comes out, be like, oh yeah, animations are cool. Moving on. And it's like, what? But you really sold me on, like, that idea. Or the video where, you were interviewing the people about the empty multiplayer maps.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was just like, I don't have that feeling from playing multiplayer games because I wasn't in that scene, but I 100% get that feeling in terms of like just remembering certain things I'm listening to in the context of where I'm standing in a game.
Yeah.
And like when I replay a game, I get to remember where I was playing it the first time or what I was listening to, whatever podcast or video or music. And it's just like, I do feel a sort of emptiness that comes
Yeah.
from not having that right now. The space feels bad because it's not exactly the same as how it was. And I remember getting that same feeling the first time I moved back to home to Nebraska after leaving college. And it was just like, I didn't consciously realize that game spaces could cause me to feel the same way
Yeah.
until I watched your video and then realized game spaces were already making me feel that way, and I was just ignoring it and moving past it because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's an interesting feeling. Like it's definitely. I think the reason why I chose to do multiplayer, for example, is because I think multiplayer is like being in school. Because the most common example of like a liminal space or canopsia is being in a space that should be full of people but isn't. And so it's like when you're walking through school at the middle of the evening or whatever, when you've just stayed over for doing a detention or whatever, there's an eerie feeling about walking through hallways that are now empty, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that's a similar feeling to multiplayer maps, because like multiplayer maps and being like school, you got gathered with friends, you had conversations, you had those many times where you'd be waiting for someone, so you're just pacing around the map or whatever while having these conversations and stuff that you will remember. So then when you go back to games like Halo that I spoke about it and see it completely empty and see these conversations and other players running around not happening, there's just a layer of something wrong, and I think that's why it's interesting to talk about with multiplayer maps. But like with single player games, that whole video has inspired me to do a video on Silent Hill 2, because in VR you can download maps, and someone has downloaded the entirety of the Silent Hill 2 map.
Okay.
And it's interesting because there's no bad guys, there's no music, it's just the map, the mist that you can use a torch, you can go into all the interiors, the hospital, all key locations of the game, and explore them, but in VR. And I think that's interesting because Silent Hill 2 was developed in a time where VR seemed like an impossibility. So you're now able to explore and look at these empty maps that were in ways that the developer never intended. And it goes back to me being stubborn. There's a common theme of people being like, no one on YouTube ever says anything fresh about Silent Hill 2 anymore. And I think it's something that a lot of people can agree with. Silent Hill 2 is just a way for people to let out their depression, frustrations.
Right.
And I was just like stubborn in a way that I'm like, I know I have a way to talk about Silent Hill 2 that no one's ever spoke about before. So, I'm going to hone in on that with VR and the Silent Hill 2 map. But it definitely resonates with the same feeling of having empty multiplayer maps, because now it's a map that is abandoned and still has a linger of horror, like without there being any horror. And that's because of your memories to that place.
Right. The associations are already there. Even for people who haven't played Silent Hill, like, it's because of the reputation that it's built up in the community. Like, everyone knows the imagery. Everyone knows that this space means this feeling, and you're gonna feel it regardless.
It's like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. You know what I mean? You may not know The Shining, you may not have seen The Shining or read The Shining, but for example, in the sequel Doctor Sleep, when he must return back to the Overlook, already you're like, oh no, I wouldn't go there. Like, no. There is a legacy. There's a legacy with it.
I'm sorry, you just said that so casually.
No.
Like he's in a bar with his mates and he's just like, I've got to go back to the Overlook Hotel, and then the guy on the corner is just like, oh, I wouldn't go there if I were you.
It's got like the intense music, like boom, like building up. He's like, no, I wouldn't go there.
He's just eating some bar nuts. And he's just like, sometimes dead is better.
But yeah, it is that feeling. Yeah.
Oh,
that's funny.
Okay. Well, to the task at hand, now that we've ignored it for so long because we were having fun. The Gamers Tell All interview series is all about asking 2 specific questions that we haven't talked about yet, which are, what's the most significant thing you've learned from a game? And how did the game teach that lesson? How did the game teach whatever that was? And you're super free to answer this question in whatever way you want to talk about. So What game are we going to talk about?
Okay, so about is Halo ODST.
Really? Okay.
It's a subject that I've been debating to do a video on, but I don't think there's enough meat to do a video on, maybe. But it's the idea of unremarkable heroes. It's this.
Okay, because ODST is the one where you're playing the regular soldier, not
you just play as a soldier.
Not
yeah,
a
you play as
Spartan.
Yeah. You're just a normal human being left alone to walk around a melancholy city that's been destroyed. And I think,
and not to break your role, because I just want to share a misunderstanding that young Alex had when that game came out. I only heard the title spoken. I never read it. So I thought the name of the game was Halo ODST, as in like smelly. It was a smelly cup of tea. And I was like, who wants to play a shooter about a smelly cup of tea? And so I just ignored it. The end. Oh well. Moving on with my life.
That's a strange place to take the franchise, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, they have a vision. It's about the Bible. Do it.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just like an odious cup of tea. Well, good for them.
But yeah, I think ODST is important. I think I actually did a whole video on Halo ODST already, and I think it's important for the franchise because it's not just important to build lore and tell the story, but it's important to understand just how powerful and how important a character such as Master Chief or even the Spartans are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're able to see the world through the lens of someone who is unremarkable, someone who isn't a special super soldier, but instead just a tactically trained special operative, it creates an entirely new layer for like the characters in that universe, I think. Like, so when you play as the rookie in ODST, you feel like there's so much more tension and so much more aggression that comes from the world, rather than when you're playing as Master Chief, where you're like, yeah, let's just pick up a Spartan laser, rocket launcher, and
yeah,
like you don't really care, like, because you're a super soldier. But immersive. Don't get me wrong, ODST you can play it very similarly because it's the same engine, but
Mhm.
they brought back falling damage. They brought back health packs. You can't just recharge your shield and be good to go. You have to play it totally different. But at the end of the day, the character still is able to find his friends and you know even learn something about the Covenant that the Master Chief never knew. He was able to uncover more than someone who is a super soldier. And the reason I love that is because it's just a story that says to you, you don't need to be special to be a hero. You don't need
Yeah.
to be born in a special place, or you don't need to be fed with a silver spoon or learn incredible skills. You can be anyone. And I love that as a message. I love ODST in that little package, and I think that links to the reason why I love games like Wind Waker, despite Link being the hero of time, or someone who's foreseen to be great. Wind Waker's Link is unlike any other because he's clumsy, he's expressionless, he's doing it. The only reason he does it is because of his sister gets taken away.
Right.
He's only told
And
to leave the island because he has to save someone.
right, and he's like, it's the only, or at least it feels like the only time when Link is, where he never grows up. And I'm not
Yes.
even talking about like the actual time travel mechanics of I become adult Link now.
Yeah.
He always feels like a kid who is just kind of incompetent at
Yeah,
what he's
yeah.
doing. Like he's barely coasting along between the islands,
Yeah.
because he lucked out and got a ship with a personality that can kind of write itself. And it's just like, and he gets so lost. Like the first island you go to, he gets bullied by a bunch of kindergartners, and he's just like, I don't know what to do. A kid with snot is chasing me, and it's the worst.
Yeah,
And
it's wonderful. And I think, like you're saying, he's incompetent in the way that he gets to places. You got to remember, the only way he gets into the Forbidden Fortress is because they put him in a barrel and then fire him out of a cannon against his will. They just
Yeah.
do it. Or
one of the dungeons you get into is you get jailed. You failed. You got caught.
yes,
Deal with it.
Or do you remember? I can't remember what temple it is, but it's a temple that raises out of the ocean after you collect all the I think it's the Triforce pieces or the maps. And then the statue that you give the last piece to explodes. He goes flying through the air and then face plants into the side of the wall of the temple and just finds it by doing that, just because he got blown up and thrown across the map. He isn't, he isn't planning to do anything great. He isn't like, I'm going to go save the day. He's just clumsily, and that's why I love it, because he's such a relatable, like, idiotic hero that still gets the job done.
And like he's not that the Wind Waker Link is not clumsy because they are just a clumsy character. They're not bumbling around like a physical comedian. They are actually earnestly trying, and it just doesn't work out. But then it works out because he kept trying.
I think that's a good example, actually, of like, spoiler alert, when you defeat Ganon at the end. Do you remember this? I think it's definitely one of the darker scenes in the Zelda franchise. But he kills Ganon because Ganon knocks him up in the air, and as he comes back down, he just faces his sword back down and goes straight through Ganon's head.
Right.
He never planned to stab him through the head. Like, I love the idea that he defeated Ganon because Ganon threw him in the air, and he was like, well, I might as well go down slashing. And, he just coincidentally went straight in between the eyes. And I think that's such a cool idea.
I think it's the only like final boss beheading in the series.
That's what I'm saying. It's super dark. Like, it is like a whoa.
Maybe that was their consolation prize to all the people who were like, what, this isn't edgy, I hate Wind Waker.
I think so. I honestly think so. I think it is like one of those, the world can be charming, but to sometimes win, you got to do some nasty shit. And and Link had to do that, like, to defeat him.
So let's jump back to Halo Smelly Tea, so that we can, or I guess maybe to the other Halo games when you're playing Master Chief, to see how they sort of set up ODST to help deliver that feeling.
Yeah.
Because my memory, my understanding of how you interact with regular soldiers when you are playing Master Chief is that they end up kind of being like glorified mules.
Yeah.
They carry a gun you like.
And you pick it up.
They're extra ammo when you need
Yeah.
it. You don't really pay attention to whether or not they're dying because whatever, more will come back. Like they do seem like kind of not important, kind of expendable when you're playing the other games, at least in my impression.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. Like, then I think that's the point. Like to give, obviously, because you got to remember, the Marines are voiced. A lot of Marines are voiced by Michelle Rodriguez and David Cross. You know what I mean? Like, so you got like one of the most badass like actresses in cinema who just plays cool characters, and then you have a comedian. Like and I think like when you see like Chief or whatever, like they're like, "Wow, it's Master Chief! He's here to save the day!" Like, and I think like that's the empowerment Bungie wanted to give you. I think they wanted to just have these circumstances where it's like you are superhuman and you can kill these people in a second if you really wanted to, but you know,
Right.
don't do that.
But don't, because you're a good guy.
Don't. And I think like when like they build up Master Chief, for example, the scene in Halo 2's intro, where where there's two scenes actually. The beginning where he has to give the Covenant back their bomb. I don't know if you remember that, but the Covenant plant a bomb on one of their ships in space, and then Master Chief opens the hangar and he's like, "Captain, I got mission to leave the ship." He's like, "On what order?" He's like, "To give the Covenant back their bomb." And then he fucking he space surfs the fucking bomb through space, fucking jump kicks, backflips off the bomb into the Covenant ship, blows it up, and then lands back on his own ship. And it's like, damn, that's Master Chief.
And let's not forget that he's a Jesus allegory, because it's about the Bible, right? So that scene was symbolic.
Yes.
That scene was symbolic of like
when Jesus gave back the bomb.
when Jesus gave the bomb back to Rome for hanging him, for crucifying him, and he's like, "I'm here to give your cross back, Pontius
to give the
Pilate."
Romans back their bomb.
But it's symbolism for like the end of the old covenant and the Old Testament and the beginning of the new, only with aliens. And
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. But turns out Bible's pretty cool, guys.
What was I gonna say? And then then the mission after that, you're in the city, chasing a scarab, which is a giant robot spider thing that the Covenant used to blow things up. They could just use anything else. But you have to destroy that, and it's just wrecking everyone. It's destroying the city. All the Marines are like bandaged and on the floor, and then Master Chief just comes out of nowhere, jumps on top of this scarab, one man, dual wielding Uzis, and then walks out of the exploding scarab with like a shotgun over his shoulder and just like the sunlight gleam in his eye, and the Marines all like, "Yeah, Chief." And I think just within those the first 3 missions of Halo 2, especially, they're like, Master Chief is unstoppable. Master Chief is called the Demon from the Covenant for a reason, and we're going to show you why. And I think what that did as well, because it's set in the same city that ODST is based in, what that did is showed how when you play ODST, you're not Master Chief. You're not jumping on that scarab anymore. The scarab is now,
Right.
Which you do see in the last mission of ODST. There's a scarab that's like chasing you across the city, and it's got a totally different presence because you're not that Master Chief. You're not someone who's capable of doing that. You're instead humans trying to survive, trying to get to the highway to get out of the city before it gets nuked. Like it's just so cool. Like it's just a nice little build up, and it's such a parallel difference from traditional Halo.
ODST did a lot of things, just even with like presentation, that contributed to that feeling of being like weaker and dependent right from the outset. For one, you can tell right away that you are short. You are shorter than Master Chief.
Yeah.
You move slower than him. You have to wait for your team because you need them to shoot things if you want to get past this next segment and keep going through the mission. And like, and you already touched on like how they got away from the shield system and got to health packs. And it's like you have to pay attention significantly more. Like I think it eventually does get to a lot more of the like Twitch, faster paced like combat, but at the start they make a concerted effort to make you feel slower and have to play more tactically before they sort of, at least my impressions of it, before they reopen up the full like range of abilities, and now it's just Halo but with a slightly different rule set. They start you out not really feeling all of that at once.
Yes. So I mean, because what you play as the rookie in the city, and you're alone. And obviously, in the rookie's gameplay, it's slower. It's the soundtrack is just, it's beautiful. It's the best soundtrack in Halo, in my opinion. But it's jazzy and it's, you know, noir feeling because you're trying to uncover this story of what happened to your team. And obviously it goes back to the original Halo gameplay when you are playing as your team, and that's because you're not the rookie. You know what I mean? The point of being a rookie is you're meant to be, you know, new to this. You're meant to be you're meant to be here because it's your first day on the job. And then when you're playing as, you know, Buck or Romeo and all that, you know, an elite sniper, the demolition man, the guy who's in charge, you know, to say that Buck eventually becomes a Spartan, it feels more powering and empowering because of its gameplay change. And I think that's what made it do such a good job with its overall like feeling of being weak, because when you all of a sudden go back to rookie, you remember, oh wait, I am still low on ammo, I am still walking around a city with nothing to do besides survive. And I even think that I make a point in this in my ODST video, with the soundtrack, that one of the main tracks that play when you're in the city is called Deference for Darkness, which, you know, deference as a word just means to respect something.
Right.
Respect the darkness, because as Bane said, the darkness is your ally. I'm really adapted to the dark. I was born in it. And I think that and that really. Do
you have like a cup near you or something?
Oh,
you actually used a cup. Oh man, I guessed it. Oh, look at me. I know audio. I know Foley techniques. I was like, so, I can hear something going on over there. That wasn't just his voice.
But yeah, like just having that soundtrack play along with it, and I don't know if you've heard the track, but if you listen to it and then imagine being alone in a raining dark city surrounded by aliens that just want you dead with no ammo or at least one clip in a handgun, it completely changes the scene and how you look at the Covenant, because it's just like, okay, yeah, maybe I should sneak around these guys instead of wasting my bullets because I ain't got much to go by, you know?
Right. It's like they sort of, I guess the thing that they're really doing then is that they are playing with their genre, and they're switching it away from that, you know, that action shooter into like survival stealth, like telling you, hey, other options exist, which you would never think about in any other circumstance, because you're used to us telling you like this is about war. And it's like, well, then we're reminding you with this game, well, no, war is about survival, because two competing ideologies, or in this case planets, beings, are saying we won't coexist. So the only option is do what you have to survive. And turns out that's not easy. Even if we want to make it look easy and fun for the side of the story that's really progressing the plot.
Yeah. I think that is also the game's biggest weakness, is because at the end of the day, it is still a Halo game. And I think because of the engine they use, and obviously they're just using the same gameplay from Halo 3, they're not able to lean into it hard enough, I don't think. Like at the end of the day, like if you want to, you can sneak behind the enemies and just melee punch a Covenant to death in a single punch, because that's just the Halo rules. That's always been the rules, and they're not going to change it. But I think it would have been so it could have been so much more interesting if, I don't know if you've ever seen the Peter Jackson, like, not fake, but like it was like the beta footage for the film that they was making.
I
And like,
didn't.
yeah, and there's a scene where they're like shooting at this brute, and the bullets are just bouncing off them. Like, you can't do anything. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot like a big giant ape monster covered in armor? Like, there's no chance.
Yeah.
And I feel like they could have leaned into that. Like, imagine playing ODST and being like, oh, I can't shoot the brute because these armors, my bullets, aren't doing anything. Like, I think they could have really leaned on the horror aspects of it, but of course that would separate it completely from the genre. And obviously, I understand
Right.
why they did that as a creative choice, of course.
So like it was clear that they wanted to play with it. They
Yes.
wanted to bring in elements from survival horror. Didn't decided not to use the horror, or maybe they couldn't
Yeah.
because it was just like maybe the overall design was just like, well, let's not make them feel too unempowered
Yes.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
this is the big shooter of the season. But like I can just imagine if you go like sneaking up and doing that like punch to take someone out, what if it only took out half their health?
Yeah. Exactly.
And
Or
like
what if it didn't?
that was the one good hit you got. Now it's a regular shootout. Do it.
And the thing is, they show that in Halo 3. I remember a lot about Halo for some reason. In Halo, I own the encyclopedia, by the way. I'm a fanboy.
I can tell.
The Halo
I'm
3.
not judging you, but secretly I'm judging you.
Yeah, that's okay. You're wrong. There's a scene in Halo 3 in the second mission, where you have to save a bunch of Marines, and like you zoom in with your goggles, and there's this scene where like a Marine's like, "Oh yeah, come on in, brute," and then like he punches the brute, and then like he hurts his fist, and then the brute just like kicks him into a cell. And it's
Oh,
like
God.
because the humans, we're gonna punch a brute, like we're just stupid. Like, and I feel like imagine in ODST if you just punch someone and it just does nothing. You're like, well, duh. Like they could have leaned in on that, but obviously I understand totally why they didn't.
Yeah, it's like when you hear that scene is kind of just like I don't know why this image came up, but it was just like the idea of a boxer stepping in the ring with a kangaroo, and it's just like,
Yeah.
what are you, stupid? Like it
Yeah.
kicks you, you die. You're like, that's how that works.
They can break your ribs immediately.
Are you gonna wrestle with a silverback gorilla? Like their muscles
Yeah,
work
no,
better than ours.
That's the part I don't get. It's like brutes are based on gorillas. Why are we punching them? What are you doing?
Fun
Yeah.
fact, a big reason why the other great ape species are so much stronger than us is because, one, they have muscle striations and connections that run the entire length of the arm, and ours stop at each of our joints. Plus, they are able to digest proteins from plant matter, like grasses and veggies, and so they have significantly more access to proteins than we do. We have to eat meat because we're omnivores. They get their proteins from plants because they're herbivores.
I've learned something new today about gorillas. I did not
Right.
expect that to be a thing.
Yep. So evolutionary speaking,
Don't punch a gorilla.
yeah, don't punch a gorilla. Evolutionary speaking, don't punch that gorilla. They're better than you. They are better than you.
Can you imagine if they had our brains? Oh my god.
I can. I saw that DC everything. Gorilla Grodd.
Oh yeah, you're right. I just figured that scene.
Main enemy of the Flash. Come on.
Main enemy
and
of
the Teen
Obama.
Titans. Wait, what about Obama?
Have you seen?
Did Obama and Gorilla Grodd have a crossover?
Have you not seen the episode? I think it's Supergirl or maybe the Flash. But Gorilla Grodd goes back in time to kidnap Obama.
What?
And the part where Obama's in university and he kicks open Obama's door and he's like, Barack Obama, we finally meet. And I'm like,
Barack Obama was busy studying law and smoking weed in college. Come on.
And Gorilla Grodd knew where to find him. Oh, it's so funny. I don't like the show, but that scene kills me on the own way.
What the hell were they thinking?
Barack Obama. Oh, it's so funny.
I want comics to be taken seriously. Bam! Barack Obama, we finally meet. Oh,
Oh, it's
good
so good.
lord. So I
What was
mean,
he
I
talking about?
guess from that scene in Halo 3, I
Mm,
guess it's really clear that even after ODST, the at least the narrative designers, the writers, have an intention to want you to remember what that game was trying to accomplish.
mm.
Or at least tell the people who decided to skip the game because it wasn't like mainline or whatever, uh, that this experience is still there, and that the people, the regular soldiers that Halo works with, that Master Chief works with, um, that Halo Man works with,
Oh, it's Halo
the
Man.
Halo
I
Man.
everyone
Um,
remembers being a kid and calling the main character after the title.
yeah.
I love Assassin's Creed, best character.
Hey, Nier fans still call the main character Nier or Nier Man, even though Yoko Taro came out and like was yelling, "His name's not Nier, it's protagonist." Um, and it's like no one cares.
Get it right.
Uh, but like if they're including scenes like that, and I guess it makes me curious to want to go back and look at cutscenes from 4 and 5, to just be like, are they still reminding you that the regular soldiers that Master Chief is working with are not suddenly themselves invincible or completely safe or not struggling because Master Chief is there? Like, Master Chief is achieving amazing goals all the time,
They don't call him
but
Master Chief for nothing.
but like, does I guess the real question is, with the series as it went forward and as it'll go forward from here, uh, do they want to? Are they still going to try to have you remember
I I
that?
think
Yeah, those soldiers, they're struggling, they're working hard. Master Chief is working, but this is his 9 to 5.
yeah. I obviously what's important I think about ODST. And also I think it's important to my unremarkable heroes thing is ODST came out and was an advertisement for Halo Reach.
Right.
You got to remember when you walk around ODST and when you're walking around New Mombasa, there is just remember Reach everywhere, just pasted everywhere. And obviously, Halo Reach is something that was in Halo Forever, but obviously we never got it explained. And obviously, Halo Reach is a prequel. And what happens in Reach is, despite a whole entire planet filled with Spartans, they all lose. You know what I mean? They all get wiped
Uh-huh.
out, and the whole planet gets destroyed. Well, not destroyed, but like it gets taken over by the Covenant. And I think that's important to come after ODST because ODST is a message of you don't need to be superhuman to save the day, and then reaches even if you are superhuman, it doesn't mean you will win. You know,
Right. Right.
and I think they complement each other with their themes because they're both very melancholy. They're both quite sad. Where as we were saying earlier, ODST ramps up as you play. It feels more like a traditional Halo. But then when you play in Reach over time, as the team die and you learn that you're getting overnumbered one by one, its final mission is just a last stand. Your helmet gets destroyed and you can hardly see and stuff like. It's a really cool mission, and I think it's completely opposite but the same to ODST in such a good way. And I think it's just the perfect swan song for Bungie's Halo. And I think Halo 4 and 5, I don't think they're great. I think Halo 5 is so bad to the stage I've tried to complete it six
Oh.
times. I've tried to complete it 6 times and never have. And Halo 4 is a good game. I think it's fun, but it definitely, I don't know, it continues. It does continue that theme of Master Chief being, this hero of space. But obviously, going back to my five finger personality video, I talk about how in Halo 4, it was the first time we're seeing cutscenes through the eyes, or not all cutscenes, but a lot of cutscenes through the point of view of Master Chief. because instead of it being a story about telling you why, and like I said, the intro of Halo 2, where it's telling you why Master Chief is so great, it's a story where you are Master Chief and you have to discover more about him. You're discovering something new about him through his POV, rather than a game telling you about a legacy that is, which why he has the name Master Chief, and I think that's the best thing Halo 4 does that Halo 5 just can't do.
Because, well, I mean, it's already done. They
Yeah.
have to find a new idea.
I mean, Halo 5 was so bad it's caused them to reboot the series in a soft way to make it go back in the past. Like,
Hey, you do what you got to do to keep the shareholders happy.
yes.
But I guess for my comment on, just with ODST and Reach, it's impressive, to say the least, on the part of the studio to, I'm a Warframe fan, and so my typical interaction with Bungie is just going, haha, Destiny sucks, Warframe's better. And then they say, but look at Warframe, it's terrible now. And I'm like, yeah, so. But it's impressive that they even made the choice to basically say, we are going to deconstruct what we have made on our way out. We're going to be like the thing that exposes what the series was all along by changing it and showing it from two inverted angles, one after the other. Because having you describe it now, awakened my perspective that, how intentional that was.
Yes.
And like, it was not just, here's your regular soldiers, your boots on the ground, and here's your Master Chief again.
Yeah.
It's having the boldness to deconstruct your own story and your own game before someone else tries to do it, before someone comes along and says, I can make the like dark, twisted, you were the bad guy all along version of Halo, and like say, well, no, that's not how you deconstruct our story. Here's how you tell the nuance of this story that we didn't bother with because we were too busy having fun before.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. It's a bold choice. So I guess to end out, I want to share a story with you about my experience with Halo growing up, as a wee little babe, because I hated Halo for years with a passion. And not because I was a Sony fanboy. I only got over this like maybe the last 2 years.
You was a Call of Duty kid, wasn't you?
Not even that. I just hated Halo. And the reason was, one time, I very rarely got to actually like travel and visit my cousins when I was a kid. And we went to Des Moines to visit my cousins. And I was like, oh, cool. I know they play games. I don't have a lot of gamer friends. I'm going to take my console. I'm going to take all of my favorite games. I got my Soul Caliburs. I got my blah, 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 blah. Take the Mario Kart, like everything. It's like, we can game all weekend and it'll be so much fun. And I got there and they were playing Halo.
What one?
And I believe it was the first Halo.
Okay.
This was Xbox PS2 days.
Yeah. So
if I remember correctly.
Halo 2 was on there, to be fair, on the original Xbox.
Yeah, my timeline's broken because of the years of grudge that I held.
Okay.
But basically, that's all they wanted to play, and they refused to play anything other than Halo. And it was 2-player multiplayer, so we were shitting off. I can't remember if I had 3 or 4-player multiplayer, but they only wanted to do 2.
Oh, it did have 4 players, so that's a shame.
No, they wanted to do 2 because they wanted to have bigger, a bigger field of view. They didn't want the tinier screen.
Okay, yeah.
And so they said, no, we'll trade off. And of course, I lost almost immediately every time. Like, I was like, the needle gun's pretty cool. It's weak. It's not working. I died. I have to hand the controller off. This
Best
is
gun in the
stupid.
You're in the right track.
And then, like, And then, like, after like 5-6 hours of just this, I'm like, hey, you want to play Mario Kart? They're like, no.
Oh,
And then the next day, all day Halo. The next day, all day Halo. And I'm just like, I don't care about this game because my cousins are being assholes. And
yeah.
and I'm blaming Halo for it.
Yep.
Halo
I've been
turned
there.
my cousins into assholes.
I've been there.
And so I left that weekend, packed up all of my stuff again. Some of it, like the Nintendo never even came out of the suitcase. And it was just like, all right, I hate Halo forever, and I hate my cousins for being transformed by it, but mostly I hate Halo for corrupting my family. And it was like that
That's
was the severely warped impression that I got of Halo as my first experience with it. And so I
it,
just refused.
it's
I was
funny
just
you
like,
say that.
no.
It's a very similar experience I had with Resident Evil 4.
Really?
I'm a diehard Resident Evil fanboy. I've played Resident Evil since the originals and such. But my dad got Resident Evil 4 when it first came out PlayStation, and it also came out alongside Hulk Ultimate Destruction. And we went
Two
up
very
to
similar games.
very similar. I don't know if it came out at the same time, but I remember getting the games around the same time. And we went up to my dad's, and I was like, "Yes, I'm going to take this new game, Hulk. Woo! Can't wait to play it." And my dad was just hooked to Resident Evil 4, not allowing me to play the game. And ever like for years, it literally wasn't until maybe the Xbox 360 remaster came out that I actually played Resident Evil 4 properly. Like for years, I was like, I can't stand Resident Evil fucking 4 because it ruined my childhood.
And like, no, and it's ridiculous to think now, but that feeling was real.
Yeah, yes, it is genuine. Like Resident Evil 4 is like one of the greatest games ever made. Like it's timeless. And now I'm like, I just back then I was like, I just wanted to play Hulk.
And like for you, it must be worse because it's just like I don't have to see my cousins most of the time, and you're just like, you took my dad from me.
Resident Evil 4 killed my family.
Resident Evil killed my father.
Snuck in at night and stabbed him in cold blood.
Oh God.
Oh wow.
Oh. We were smart kids.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
We were very smart. All right. Well, I think that'll call it for a day. This was a ton of fun, my man.
It was brilliant. Thank you for having me on. It's great.
I can't believe how many places we went with this. This is whatever background footage ends up being used. I'm sure it will be appropriate enough. I don't know, but gosh, thank you so much for coming on. To the people who are watching, listening to this still at this point, links to the Checkpoint show are in the description. Make sure to give it a click, give them a subscribe, watch through all the stuff after you subscribe. Break that algorithm for them as much as you can.
Break it.
Because, anyone who supports this channel is just, my favorite person forever. And now that includes you, Nathan.
Ah, thank you.
All right. Anything last words you want to say to the people before we go away?
No, just thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry you had to listen to my voice.
Oh, nonsense. Your voice was perfect. I especially liked when you talked into the cup and sounded like Bane. All right. Goodbye. Perfect. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.